How to sell their home as fast as possible. I'm Charlie, welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals.
My approach to this problem is to try to help reduce the supply of new homeless people. That there's a sort of moral obligation as a fellow human being that you can't do nothing about this.
And you need to find the least terrible estate agent.
But here's my advice on how to price when you're renegotiating.
There's nothing else you need. If you've got this 150 quid, that's it, you can move in.
Oh my God.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Moving Home with Charlie. I'm Charlie Lambden. And for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome to the large number of new subscribers that we've got. I am here to share my insights of the last 20 plus years working alongside estate agents to help movers get a better deal when they're moving house. And tonight is the first time I've done a live stream with a real live human estate agent who I've got waiting in the green room. Perry Power from Power Bespoke in Surrey, who's a guy I've known for a long time and is a really impressive agent. I'm excited to talk to him. And it's particularly relevant today because just today, as a result of the video I did a couple of nights ago about Desperate to Sell, was that even last night? I can't remember. I've been having private messages from sellers who are trapped with agents and are really worried. So this morning's video, some of you might have seen about, I'm starting to panic, was the actual quote from a seller that messaged me yesterday. And we're going to touch on that today. Now, just before I bring Perry in, just watching the housing market news, the Bank of England is starting to make worrying signs again. Whenever they start doing these press releases and start publishing what their head economist is going to say and what one of their committee members is saying about, oh, actually, you know, we're really worried about inflation, so we're probably going to have to get even higher on the rates. It's almost like they're deliberately unsettling the market, and it's very difficult to know what's going to happen, but it doesn't feel good. And there's also a little bit of political instability returning now with Rishi Sunak's backbenchers pushing back against the mandatory house building targets, which is not good news, I don't think. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to invite Perry to join us. Now, before I bring him in, I'm just going to let you know. So Perry decided he wanted to become an estate agent when he was 12 years old. And as soon as he left school, he went and worked for his local agent. And then not long after that, he started up his own estate agency. And that's when I met him back in 2009, when he took on one of my estate agency CRM products. And we got to know each other very well. We worked alongside each other quite closely. And I got to learn a huge amount about what estate agents do through my working relationship with Perry. And today he runs a company called Power Bespoke. It's his own agency and it covers the whole, it's basically from the south of London all the way down to the south coast, centered around Surrey, but covering Sussex and Kent as well. And Perry is a really impressive guy. I'm going to bring him in now and we'll get straight into the questions. And then I'll be looking for your questions in the chat after I've gone through the first few questions I've got for him. So, good evening, Perry. Welcome.
Evening, Charlie. Do you know, I bet as you were introing me then, everyone's thinking this guy must be about 90. And then I still look 12, apparently. So thanks for the introduction.
But no, so how many years have you been an estate agent now?
I was just working it out, actually. Like, I guess from when I was a T-boy on a Saturday, 20 years.
Right, all right.
I've been full-time for 19 years.
That qualifies you to know what you're talking about by now.
Hopefully, yeah, no pressure. It's just like, go easy on me, guys, all right? I'm the first estate agent that you've had on.
Well, one of the things, so my number one message to all movers is to make sure they don't fall for the oldest mistake in the book, which is to think that all estate agents are the same. And guys, Perry is one of the agents that proves all estate agents are not the same. Okay, I can absolutely vouch for that. If you think all estate agents are the same, you'll make the mistake of thinking, well, I'll just go and choose whoever's got the lowest fee then, because they're all the same anyway. And that's when you end up going through some of the nightmares that some of you have been telling me about today, which I'm about to talk about, and you find yourself stuck, really badly stuck and missing out on your life opportunities to move ahead. Let me crack straight into that one because, Perry, I want to talk. My first question is from me to you about the fact that a lot of first-time sellers don't even seem to realize that many agents, but not all, have hidden in their contract and their terms and conditions a sole agency lock-in agreement for a minimum period of time. For example, some of them are 12 weeks, some of them are 16 weeks. But as you said to me just before this show, you've come across some agents actually now locking people in for up to 6 months. Now, the risk there is that you go ahead and sign up with an agent thinking that they're going to sell your house. You then find that they don't sell it, they can't sell it, and not getting any viewings. And when you say to them, I've had enough, I want to go somewhere else, they're like, well, you can't. You signed a contract with us and you cannot leave. And just this morning, I got an absolutely heart-rending message on Instagram from a seller who said, this is what I did my short 2-minute video about this morning. They went on the market back in the beginning of the year. They got a sale agreed quite quickly. They went on at slightly below what they thought they could get for it. They got an offer slightly over asking price, like about 2% over asking. They agreed it. And then a few months later, that sale fell through. They decided to change agents. They went to an agent that was recommended by someone, and they signed up with this agent who persuaded them to drop their price, go on lower to attract more buyers to get a quick sale. And they thought, well, I like the sound of that. I'm happy to drop the price to what you recommend to get a quick sale. They signed with that agent. That was 3 weeks ago. They've had 1 viewing in 3 weeks. They've gone back to the agent and said, listen, this is a problem for us. We need to sell right now because the seller is disabled and they're currently in a house and they need to move into a single-story property. And what they've realized now, because the agents come back and said, oh, sorry, cost of living crisis. It's not our fault there are no buyers, but no, you can't leave because you signed a 20-week contract with us and you cannot leave. Now, I advised her to ring up the agent today and say, please, could you release me from that 20-week contract? Because I want to change agents now and find an agent that's going to not tell me that they can't sell my house and find an agent that says that they can sell my house. Because for this particular seller, achieving the sale is more important than the actual price. They need to move for non-financial reasons. In her situation, it's because of her disability. So Perry, I know that a lot of the best agents don't require their clients to sign lock-in contracts and leave their clients free. Would you just like to talk about your point of view on this and what you do?
So if an agent's not prepared to agree to a 1-minute notice rolling agreement, you shouldn't employ them in the first place, is my absolute advice. And it's getting worse, right? So right now, it's been fine, right? Let's say the crazy market we've been in the last few years, if you choose the wrong agent, I would probably go as far, and I'm a diehard fan for good estate agency. It didn't take, a monkey could have sold a house over the last couple of years for a pretty high price because the demand and the competition and the multiple offers were driving the price up. In this kind of market, what we're going into, it's really important that you do not sign a tie-in contract. I really believe that. And I also think like agency contracts or agreements should really be service level agreements. That would, even if government were to roll out a kind of, right, you can't tie people in on false hope, let's say, but we will, or you can tie them in, but it's linked to a service level agreement potentially, so that your client you're talking about has got grounds for, look, I've had 1 viewing in 3 weeks. But the problem with that is I don't think it solves the real problem, because agents will just find the amount of viewings that, if they're going to be scrupulous and unethical, they're going to find, if they're that type of agent, they're going to find a way of being that way.
Right.
But yeah,
but you don't. So you don't tell your clients of the whole of Power Bespoke, and just give people an idea. What sort of numbers of listings have you got at the moment across your network? And
we're 40, 50. We're not huge. We're a higher fee, lower volume, bespoke agency. We charge double what most of our local agents charge. Most of our business comes from second hand. So it's been on the market with a previous agent, failed to sell it, come to us to get it sold. And yeah, employ us today, sack us tomorrow if we don't produce and the communication's terrible. It's simple as that. Low friction. I think it's really important that someone moving into the most stressful thing they're going to probably do in their life has complete peace of mind that they can change their mind at any point. Yeah. That is so
your clients are free to just walk away.
All our clients tonight could watch this and say, take my house off the market. Technology is mad. We click a button and it's taken down. not 14 days notice period to pull it down from the portals,
Right.
and we could have no listings tomorrow.
Right.
We're that confident in our ability. We ain't got to we haven't got to tie people in.
Well,
and I've had
that-
some clients for 9 months for sale because they know they're getting the best, not because they have to be stuck with us.
Right, exactly. And so this is wonderful because it's a fantastic example. I mean, when my colleague Sam, Samantha, sold her house in Taunton, we approached 18 agents by email to say, we're inviting you to come and do a valuation of this house, but only on the condition that there's no lock-in contract, and whoever I instruct is happy to just accept 2 weeks rolling notice. And she offered 2 weeks rolling notice, and out of 18 agents, 11 out of 18 said no problem. And to me, so 11 out of 18, that's almost 2/3 of agents said, no, we don't need a tie-in. Less than a third of agents, or about a third of agents, obviously still require a lock-in contract. But they're in the minority. And I would say that's the first warning sign, right? And I would say to sellers, and I'd love to know if you agree with this, when you got the agent in your living room and they whip the contract out and you found an agent you do trust and you want to go with, if they've got in there a tie-in that says it's a minimum of 12 weeks or 16 weeks, you as the client are free to say to them, look, you got to take that clause out, right? I'm happy to go with you, but not if you lock me in. So just scratch that clause out if you want my business. And if you're not prepared to get rid of that lock-in, then I'm not going to go with you. Because I think a lot of vendors don't realize they have the right to say that. You have the ability to negotiate your terms to a certain extent, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I would go a level deeper. If it needs to be part of their company brand DNA that they don't tie people in.
Yeah,
I really believe that. Like, it's all right negotiating yourself no contract when their actual standard terms are 6 months. But in the first place, the brand's ethos and values and should be zero contract from the get-go. Yeah. And there's very, very few agents that do that.
Well, we've got a few questions to get through. And I'm going to so that was the sole agency. Thank you very much for that. So you agree with me, don't sign a sole agency contract.
No. You want to be able to get out of it as quick as you get into it.
Thank you. Cool.
And I think people as well need to think about employing an estate agent. This is called insanity, right? You're employing, it's really important that you recognize that word. You're employing somebody to be your agent. And if someone came into my business and asked me to sign to say that they're guaranteed a job for 6 months, whether they show up on time, do their work properly, no one's going to sign it. But sellers do, which I think they need to understand that you're employing somebody and look at it as an employment. They've got a probation period, which I guess is the calling off period, but agents get them to come and sign in their office so that there's no calling off period. There's tricks. That's one trick. Make sure you don't go into their office to sign your agreement. Make sure it's done in your house.
Okay. So the next question is, so this is specifically for the sellers that have told me that they are stuck, locked in. And I've had several sellers today contact me and say, I'm locked in to an agent that I didn't realize the situation was going to rise. They're now telling me to drop my price. How do I know what the price? So at the moment, the risk is you drop your price, but you don't drop it enough and you're chasing the market down, right? Of course, it's different in every locality. Every market's got its own dynamics. But what would your advice be to sellers who know they need to drop their price but don't know how much? Or how do you work out that magic price that's going to get you those competing buyers, even in this market, without dropping it too far? What would you advise?
So 3 things on that. 1, in any market, you've got a price for tomorrow, not today, not yesterday. That's quite important. But what is tomorrow? That's the second thing. Invest 300 quid in a RICS Red Book valuation for your house. Okay. It's worth the weight in gold. Forget the agents. Right. Get 10 agents out, you're going to get 10 different prices. That ain't going to help anybody. Even if you get 5, say, one price and 5, say, 5 different prices, you're still none the wiser because the person that said the higher price may well be right. They might not be trying to tie you into a 26-week contract and work you down. To get a survey around for 300 quid for a kind of mortgage valuation kind of thing that they're going to do for the lender in a couple of months' time anyway. I do that a lot when we're negotiating off market because we do buying agency as well. And always add the price qualifier, whatever you do with your price, the words guide price or offers in excess of. So that gives you the get out of jail card that if you are pricing it a bit too low to beat the market, the offers in excess of is going to give you a bit of leeway to say, look, we've just reduced it. it's offers in excess of 300, 320, and will agree the sale. Asking prices, when buyers offer an asking price and you don't accept it, understandably, they're a bit annoyed at times.
Yeah.
If there is no asking price to offer, and
Yeah.
like I say to my clients, it's not my job here to get you a buyer. It's my job to get you options to solve your situation. And that option might be 3 offers: a cash buyer offering less than the chained buyer, but who's under offer, and another offer from someone that's not on the market yet, so they're offering extra strong because they're asking for 8 weeks grace to get their own house under offer. So quite a lot there, but
Yeah.
definitely red book valuation. You're only going to kick the can down the road. At least you're going to know with lenders at the minute. Just recently, we had a property go on the market. It had 3 competing offers above asking price. We ended up agreeing it at 305. The bank came in and valued it at 280. We could have saved the ag and just had a kind of valuation carried out from a lender at the get-go.
Right. Wow. It's fascinating. Right. Okay. Now, this is a really, really topical question. I've had a lot of agents asking me this. If an agent tells a buyer that there are competing bids, how can a buyer confirm if this is actually true?
You can't. And here's the side note: it shouldn't matter. Stick to your negotiation plan for that property. Very few buyers I've dealt with in 20 years have come to me with a well thought out plan for their negotiation. So they're part of my plan to get them to pay the highest price, because that's what I'm here to do for my seller, obviously. But it should be irrelevant, really. Ultimately, you've got a price that you're prepared to pay for that house that you think it's worth to you based on what else you've seen on the market. What someone else is prepared to pay for it should be none of your business. Secondly, you should employ, in my opinion, I'm of the opinion that every buyer in the UK should have an estate agent, because every seller in the UK has an estate agent, has professional representation. But like the American model, buyer and seller both have a broker. The brokers go at it for their respective clients and they end up with a agreed deal. And when negotiating, understand this: people assume that price is the only leverage in the negotiation. The 2 other areas are timescales and fixtures and fittings. When buyers come to me and say they want to buy a house, what they should be asking me first is, what kind of timescales are the sellers looking to achieve with the sale of this house? They never think to do that, because I could say they need it only 4 weeks. Now, if a buyer comes around and says, I can do it in 4 weeks, but I'm only going to pay 280, it's on at 300, that's potentially more motivating for the seller than 310 in 10 weeks. So I think stepping back from and the reason I think all buyers need representation, they need an agent on their side, is because emotion gets in the way, and you should never make decisions based on emotion. At least with stepping back a little bit, saying, right, I want to pay 500 for this house, let's say. I'm going to go in at 470. I know they're going to refuse that. I'm going to increase to 480. I'm going to leave it a couple of days. I'm going to let the agent make the next move. Regularly, I negotiate, and I've negotiated 4 increases in 5 hours.
On behalf of the buyer?
Yeah, I've negotiated buyers up. Yeah, because they've got no idea what they're doing. And I'm with you, buyers need more help. They really do. Yeah. And we'll come onto this in a bit, no doubt. But the agent's obligation, their client, is the seller.
Right. Okay. Well, I completely agree with you. So, I mean, I get asked, the question I get asked most often is, what should I be offering on a property? I get this from people all over, and I always say, I can't give you a number. But if you've done enough research, if you've gone around in your local market, you've seen enough properties, you will have a gut feel about the right price for you for that property. And I agree with you. It doesn't matter whether there are other bids or not. It's like, you should offer the maximum price you're comfortable paying for that property and no more than that, and be prepared to walk away, never overpay, never overstretch yourself financially.
Yeah, never fall into someone else's plan for the price you're going to pay. Have your own plan. Don't offer the most you're prepared to pay. Work it back a little bit and have a bit of negotiation, because estate agents don't like ultimatum offers. Estate
Yeah.
agents across the board hate, 500, that's it, take it or leave it. We'd rather a 470 and let's negotiate a little bit for a day or two. And
Well, I go against it. I always advise people to just say, give them your number and walk away, because that's the only number. Because it's interesting, because there's two sides to this. But okay, all right. So your answer to the question is, there's no way of knowing if they're telling the truth or not, but it shouldn't matter anyway, because your own bid should be based on your timescales, your budget, and your terms. And sometimes you'll get it, and sometimes you won't. Right?
I regularly get people ring me, clients, because they're buying a house, and they're like, Perry, what should I offer on it? And I see comments online, all the time. Always go 20% under asking price. Do that, and you're going to potentially alienate yourself with the owner, and they're not going to want to sell the house to you full stop, even if you offer over the asking price. Be really careful, because what you don't realise is they might have priced that 10% below market value for a quick sale. So you're now going to insult them with a 30% below market value offer. So you have to pay what you're happy paying. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Now, this is a question that I have yet to get an answer from any agent I've asked. And I've asked so many agents this question. How can an honest agent be identified by a first-time seller? Or to rephrase it, how can a first-time seller who's choosing an agent work out which ones are the honest ones and which ones aren't?
Test them, put them to the test. Very rarely, when I get calls from people saying, "Oh, Perry, I'm stuck in with this contract," and I always say to them, "Did you inquire about a house that they're selling? Like mystery shop them?" And they're like, "Nah." And I was like, "Well, I did for you, and it's still 3 days later, and I've yet to have a response from them about my inquiry on your house." So I think look, agents get a bad rap, right? I get it. 28% of the population trust estate agents. And that's a really good stat to understand, because that means 28% of the population have had a great experience with an estate agent. But it's probably a correct stat in that 70% of agents ruin it for the 30%, right? And I think it's just really important, though, that sellers, we all know this, right? It's public knowledge. Estate agents generally are shysters. Let's just get that out there. And it's unfair, but it's been like it since I was 12 years old. I remember reading an article when I was 12 that 75% of the population don't trust estate agents. We're now in 2022, and it's still the same stat. Nothing's changing. So the people choosing the estate agents need to change, so they're not left, in my opinion, with egg on their face, tied into a contract, reducing their price. So what I'm getting at ultimately is do more research. Take your time. Don't take the whole, "Oh, wow, you think you're like 50 grand more than the other guys? Okay, let's give it a go." Look at their Rightmove listings, scroll through them. And if Zoopla, right? I'm not the greatest lover of the Zoopla data. It can show too much data at times, but go onto the agent's Zoopla listings and sort them in most reduced order. And if over half of them are reduced, they're telling you a load of crap.
Absolutely right.
And that balance that, the market's going through a correction, just there's so much.
Yeah, but you can compare agents with agents, can't you, in the same town? And you can see which ones have got the most reductions and which ones have had the ones sitting on the property the longest. Because I've often thought that, people think, "Oh, that agent's got loads of property in the market." That's not a good thing.
Yeah, none of it's sold. I mean, I really look at a lot the for sale to under offer ratio. I've seen agents with 70% of their properties available and 30% under offer. You want to see a nice balance, 50-50, new stock coming on. Days on market's probably going to increase a bit, but it's been at around 25 days, I think, something like that, over the last God knows how long. Yeah. So just take your time. Don't feel pressurized. The oldest trick in the book, I can get my photographer in tomorrow if you sign now. I insist people don't sign while I'm in the living room. It's not up for negotiation. Okay. I always send them a proposal and say, "Look, think about it. Talk to your partner. Mystery shop us, inquire about a property we're selling, then make a decision." But do that with all the agents that you're talking to as well.
Yeah, which is wonderful. I mean, that must just exude confidence to them, and they must love that. I bet you didn't, Maggie, but I want to sign now.
Well, but yeah, it does have the reverse effect. No, can I get going now?
Yeah.
But we don't have a paper contract to sign. We literally haven't got that. We have to send it post appraisal, breakdown of what we said, have a good read over it, sign when you're ready, and then we'll get cracking.
Okay, right. Let me see if I can take some. Look at this comment. I'll just look at the comment on the screen there. The lesson is consistent. If you're a buyer, head to the shit agents, and if you're a seller, you want a good one.
Do you know, I've had I've had buyers joke and say, remind me to never buy through you, because I've squeezed, you know, and I don't make any bones about it. You know, it's my job to negotiate my client the very best financial outcome possible. And I've had buyers literally, sellers sell with me and be like, make sure I don't want to buy a house through you, because I know I'm going to have to pay every last penny that I'm prepared to pay.
Yeah.
So it's and it's not hard to find good agents if you just take the time to research.
I'm just going to quickly do a quick plug here for my Magic Mortgage guys. I just had a comment from Chris Cooper. PS, use your mortgage link today. Fab company rang me, breath of fresh air. That's the link at the bottom, scrolling across the bottom for anyone that wants to talk to mortgage brokers. I've got a couple of hand-picked guys, and so far, everyone's been delighted with them. Now, let's get for another. So actually, Chris Cooper, the same guy, asks this question. Do you know the answer to this question? I've noticed a number of houses are being sold on a public notice. What is this, and why do sellers choose to do a public notice style listing?
So I'm guessing it's been repossessed.
Okay.
So when you sell a house that's been repossessed, so people think, here's a good bit of advice for you. People think, you know, buying houses that have been repossessed are great because they'll be able to get them cheap. As agents, we actually have to publicise how much we've got it under offer for the whole time it's under offer, inviting higher offers before it exchanges contracts.
Right.
And that's a public notice, as in making the public aware this house is under offer for 300,000 and we'll invite, and the lender pretty much has to switch buyer if they get an offer $1,000 more.
Right. Okay. Interesting to know. Here's a good question for you. Cake Tin says, can an agent sue you if you just walk away from a contract?
An agent? Yes.
Yeah, so if you're a seller and you just walk away.
Yeah. And if you look at the property ombudsman complaints, and because I sit there reading them, I'm a member, I was obsessed with estate agency at 12. So you can imagine what I read at 35 years old. Most of the complaints and awards for the property ombudsman are where agents have pursued their fee. Because ultimately what the sole agency says is it don't matter who sells it. You can sell your house with any agent you want, actually. You're just going to pay both fees.
Right. So
if you're prepared to pay double fees, then fine, put it with another agent all you like. But most agents will have let's say you've agreed a 1% fee, sole agency, it'll be 2.5% multi-agency. So you'll pay their 2.5% and you'll pay their 1%. So you're paying 3.5%, which for a lot of people, I've had clients come to me and say, don't worry, Perry, I'll pay your 2% and I'll pay their 1%. I just don't want them handling my sale. Because bear in mind, if you're on the market right now and you're not liking your agent, not trusting them, not getting a good vibe, you're not even 1/5 of the way through the process.
Right.
And if you don't trust them now whilst trying to get a buyer, you're not going to trust them during the most stressful part of it, which is getting it from offer acceptance to exchange. It's going to be an absolute, you're better off losing a bit of money and having it with someone that you've got a lot of faith in.
I agree with that. Now, here's a tough question for you, Perry, but it's actually relevant to this. Gwyn C says, how do we know Perry's the best? By what metric?
Let me show you. Officially, as of last week, the best estate agency in the Surrey County. There we go. 2 Esters.
Well
sales
done.
and lettings and sales only.
Congratulations. Now, but their question is, do you have a metric by which you can say that you're the best?
So that's not actually definable, because the best agent definition is different for each person.
I agree. Hence the whole reason for my website.
I get it. So we're not the right agent for a lot of people. I've had a lot of people that I've said to them, look, you're best off giving Purple Bricks a try.
That's almost an insult, actually.
Now, that's generally how it goes, because they want me to 0.5%, let's say.
Yeah.
And I'd say save yourself even more. If saving money is what you want to do, and it's very short-sighted, pay your £1,000 or 1,200 quid, and I'll speak to you in 6 months' time.
Right.
And then I'll sell your house for you.
Yeah.
So it's the best. I mean, that's winning these awards is great, but that's the clients that have used us,
Yeah.
and versus clients that use other agents.
I should point out to everyone watching this that the SDAS awards are actually voted for by people's customers. So the SDAS, I know this because I was involved with them a while back. I was one of the sponsors actually years ago. They actually send out surveys to hundreds of agents' clients. And it's completely, so I've actually been involved with 2 different estate agency awards, the Sunday Times Awards back in the day that were not judged impartially, and the SDAS ones that actually are genuinely judged impartially. So that is a real metric. But you're right, because sometimes the best estate agent for you is the one that makes it the least stressful. How do you measure that? You can't measure that. There's no metric for that. But also, Perry, you've always said the agent that costs you the least money is the one that gets you the highest price.
Yeah, and whenever clients say to me, "Look, I've had this agent quote me a lot cheaper fee," I'm like, "That's absolutely fine. I understand that, but at what cost? Like, at what cost? Is it sale price? Is it probability of it selling? Like, you've got to choose one that's right for you ultimately."
Right, got some interesting questions. I'm not sure. Okay, well, I suppose this is worthwhile answering. It's the same one. What's a metric for a bad agent?
This is the trouble, you know. This ties in with licensing and regulation and qualification and loads of things that I think we could probably discuss on loads. But ultimately, it's how you feel dealt with, how you feel handled when dealing with that agent. I've inquired about houses, and they couldn't give a. I've inquired about houses for my clients. They're not knowing that I'm an estate agent. And terrible, just weren't bothered, no interest. So just generally your gut is never wrong. Go with your gut up most of the time, that's what I'd say.
Right, next question. Conor McShane asks, "Hi Perry, do you have any tips for which questions buyers should ask? Ideally, we would want everyone to be transparent so the deal actually concludes. So any tips would be great."
Buyers to ask agents about properties to buy?
Yeah. So what questions should buyers be asking an agent that's selling a property to? I think it's so that the deal actually concludes. I think what Conor's saying is, what are the questions they can ask that help speed the process up and help flush out whatever the duds are going to be, you know, and avoid the time wasting.
I think you're never going to have all the questions to make sure it doesn't get derailed during the process. But just, you know, seller's position. And interestingly, the amount of times agents have got to be careful with this because they can't actually disclose the seller's position if it could have a material effect on the buyer's offer that they place.
Okay.
So by that, let's say they're divorcing. That shouldn't be disclosed, but agents a lot of the time do disclose that kind of information because that's what you want to hear, right? They're divorcing, they're motivated, great. I'll go in a bit lower than in that case because I know they're really keen to sell. If you said no one would chain, they're going to go into rented, it's the same thing, but two answers can change how a buyer is going to react to that answer.
Yeah.
So you do need, you know, I think what's more important is not what questions you ask, it's how you hear those answers from the agent.
Right.
And they can't. I'm always tricky when I'm acting for because I believe take answers with a pinch of salt. I really do when it comes to agents, because part of the thing with your live was why the lies, and as horrible as it sounds, it's because they can. There's no real repercussions.
Right. Yeah. There's no law against it. Here's an interesting one, Perry, which I'll blindside you with, but it's not. So here we are. Jimmy Davis says, "Do you agree with Charlie's 35% house fall prediction?"
I would say it's more like 40% at the minute. Oh, sorry. No, house fall. No, I don't agree. I thought you meant house fall through, as in 35%.
Okay. So fall
right?
through is 40%. Okay. But house price falls when they stop falling. How much do you think they will have fallen?
10%. And yeah, 10%. And interestingly, I love Charlie to bits. Charlie's one of the guys that I've really got a lot of time for because he's flying the flag for the consumer, and that's the really important part and the home mover. But I'm going to make his skin crawl now to tell him that 8 of our last 10 sales agreed have been at asking price or above.
Now, that's because you priced them right.
That haven't really been amended in price. I'll go through all 10. There's still, and it's very localized, right? I know your watchers here all over the country, and let's not forget that we're in the southeast, and prior to all this stuff we might have had 8 buyers per property. If that now drops down to 3 buyers per property, there's still a massive supply and demand.
But you're not really in the first time buyer market though, are you, to be honest?
No.
What's your average sale price roughly?
500,000.
Okay. Right.
Ranging from 250 to 2.5 million.
See, because of the time lag on price reporting, I'm pretty certain that once the time lag is flushed out and the figures come out, the peak prices were actually agreed back in March of this year. And in a lot of mainstream markets, and by mainstream markets I mean the sort of 200,000, 250,000, which is where the majority of volume transactions happen, I've already seen prices that already come off more than 10%, from the highs of March this year. And I think that higher up the price value that you go, there's a delay. You know, as the first time buyer RUD gets pulled out, like Virgin Money today or yesterday announcing that they're taking off their 5% deposit product is being withdrawn temporarily. So as that kind of funding gets pulled out at the bottom of the market, it takes a while for it to filter up and for the prices to come down, and it does eventually. This is my view, right? And I've always had the macro view, but well, it'd be interesting. I mean, in the long run, it is better for more people if property becomes more affordable.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It doesn't, because we operate in a home mover market. I'm not too worried because we're not having to sell 40 houses a month.
Right.
And it's relative. I've got clients now that are looking to come off the market potentially and wait. And I'm like, that's fine. Let's wait. But you just got to understand you may well be 10% less than you were, which is fine because they're looking to buy something from selling at 700, wanting to buy 900 or 1 million. So it's relative. So there's pockets. And I think the overarching, no doubt there'll be areas where prices could fall 50%. And there'll be areas where prices will fall 5%. So
okay, so I mean, I've said that I think the minimum falls once we reach the bottom, which is going to be about 18 months from now. The minimum will be 15% and the maximum about 50%, and 35 is kind of in the middle of that. So that's my current projection based on current things. It could change if there's major intervention by a bank, or if there's suddenly the war in Ukraine ends and energy prices come down. All of these things would change that prediction, but based on current circumstances, 35% is my prediction. So cool. Good question, Jimmy. Now, there's a question here that someone had. Right. Annie Anonymous says, I understand that many sales don't even get to Rightmove. Should a buyer, A, register with estate agents that they are looking, and B, let an estate agent know the top of their budget, as an estate agent will try and get you to spend that? I think that, so the second part of the question is, should a buyer divulge what their maximum budget is? Because they're afraid that if they do, the agent's going to upsell them.
Yes, do divulge your maximum budget, because what you can afford to pay has no relevance to what you're prepared to pay for a property. And if you're playing your own plan, it doesn't matter what the estate agent thinks or trying to get you to pay. But then secondly to that, you're right. They say 10% of properties don't go to Rightmove, they're sold off market. And I've just sold one recently for 2.5 million off market because the seller wanted that. They didn't want publicly available divorces, for example, if the financial struggles, they don't want the kids' schools knowing that, or their friends that they're divorcing. So, but what I'd say is you want to get yourself your own search agent who will search off market for you.
Okay.
Don't rely on the estate agent sending you property details, because half the time you won't receive them.
Okay. Thank you. Good question. Lots of questions. I think you've already answered that one earlier on. They keep. Okay. So Yoga with Divya says, I've noticed that some agents put forward questions to sellers and other agents simply don't. So I think Yoga with Divya is a buyer, and she's saying that sometimes the agent will forward her questions onto the sellers and other agents just don't. But there's nothing as a buyer she can do about this. Is that right? You can't force an agent what they're going to say to their client. Is that right?
No. And I think, no, you can't. You can't
Right.
literally, you can't have any influence over it at all. We've got to bear in mind is the sellers chose that agent as their agent to act on their behalf.
Yeah.
There's boundaries, obviously, but ultimately, always make sure that you're working with the agent. I deal with buyers all the time that want to try and work against me. And it's my advice to the seller as to who to accept, that 9 times out of 10, they're going to accept because they trust me as their agent.
Right.
So when it comes to questions, email your questions to the agent. And I think it's good to have answers in writing and get an emailed reply.
Here's a good one from a first-time buyer. Rebecca James says, Perry, you help sellers get the most for their property. What negotiation advice would you give first-time buyers trying to get on the market and not overpay right now? And I'd just like to remind people who've joined us since we started that one of the services Perry offers his selling clients is a negotiation for their onward purchase. So you act as a buying agent for them as well, don't you, Perry? So you actually carry out these things.
Yeah, well, we're buying agents standalone. Got quite a lot of clients that are only employing us to be their buying agent to help them find a house and to negotiate them the lowest price. And we sellers employ us to help them sell for the highest price. We just can't butter both sides of the bread. So if a buyer wants to buy one of our houses we're selling, we have to politely refuse and say the seller's our client in this instance.
Right.
But really good question. And it comes from, I guess, what buyers do with me, right? So people would say, let's say I've got a house on the market for 300,000. Because they're inexperienced, they would say something like, Perry, love the place. I want to start my offer at 280. Now, what do you think they've said incorrectly there?
Start.
Yeah. Happens so often. My initial offer is going to be 280. So, yeah, just stuff like that, you know, be very, just plan it. You know, I hope everyone's life's got a plan. Like buying your house is no different. You have to have a plan for your negotiation plan and your search plan. And as you can imagine, I'm plan crazy. But unless you have a plan, you'll be part of somebody else's.
Excellent advice. Yeah, I often say to people, if you walk into a house and you fall in love with it, like really fall in love with it, don't let the agent see that.
No. Honestly, and it's. Yeah, like it's you know, you go into a house and you're in the other room and you hear the husband saying to the wife, don't lose this. We can't lose this place. This whatever it takes, we've got to get this place. And it's like, come on, guys. The guy in the next room being paid a commission to get you to pay the highest price. So either keep your mouth shtum, or get someone acting on your behalf to take the. I've rewound situations where I've been on second viewings with buyers to advise them on stuff, look at it with them and I'm like kicking them. I'm like, shut up, shush, don't say anything else. Anything you do say may be held. What's that?
Yeah, anything you do say will be used against you.
Yeah, exactly that. And
in negotiations.
There is that, but you've got to bear in mind that the majority of estate agents are unqualified in what they do. Most of them actually can't negotiate themselves very well anyway.
Yeah.
And this is the problem that most sellers have. Never once. Now, I'm a certified advanced negotiator. I'm obsessed by negotiation, right? But never once have I been asked in 20 years, can I see your qualifications, please, on how to negotiate, on what qualifies you to be able to negotiate my highest tax-free asset. I would love that because I've got a briefcase full of certificates and qualifications, but none of them ever do. And I wish people would.
Right. Yeah. Well, so Rebecca, just to add to what Perry said, I always said, go and look at a house. Don't give anything away. You've got to have poker face, especially if you love it. Just keep quiet and after say, thanks for showing us. We're going to go home and talk about it. We'll let you know how we feel tomorrow. Go home, sleep on it. And then if you're going to put your offer in an email. Don't explain why. Don't say, oh my God, we love the place. Just put your offer forward. Don't reveal your emotion about the place because a good agent like Perry will spot it a mile away and will use it against you in that negotiation.
I mean, look, I've always said, you know, this is a horrible way of saying it, but negotiation is basically a form of manipulation. You're trying to get someone to do something that they not if they don't want to do, because they do want to do it, but it's things like, you know, I don't believe you should ever speak to the estate agent's in-house mortgage advisor. One, it's illegal for them to make you do it, and we all know this now, but people still do it. But also, it's not their business what you can afford. And what I'd say to Rebecca one last time is your only job on the viewing, and it sounds, is to build likability and rapport with the agent. That's all. And you haven't got to say, "I would love this place," to kind of make that happen, because the agent wants an easy life.
I'd love you to help answer this question. I see this a lot. A lot of people think that estate agents have a vested interest in property prices going up. And I keep trying to say to them, actually, agents don't, as long as there are transactions and people are moving, whether prices are going up or going down is frankly irrelevant to an agent. So there's a lot of people that get this really wrong and think that agents set prices and that agents are pumping prices up. So could you, this is Monkey Jim has made this point. Perry has a vested interest in keeping property buoyant. Could you point out to him why that's not the case?
We just interpret the market. We're not there to set the market. It doesn't matter to me, with respect, if a house sells for 500 or 450.
Yeah,
it really doesn't. It will always, a good agent. I always say to sellers, the difference between a good and a bad agent is 2% of your sale price. Pretty much. You might disagree on that, Charlie. And you know, well, it probably would be a lot more, but when it comes down to the crux of the negotiation, I mean, the average house sells for 20% lower than the original market launch price.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
That's an amazing stat. Do you hear that, everybody? Right? The average house sells for 20% less than the original launch asking price.
And that's got to sink in a minute, because, and here's how it works, right? Most, over 50% of houses we sell have previously been for sale with another agent, right? And this is where people, if you've got sellers on here or future sellers, let me just quickly try and explain something around selling your house and flowers in your garden. This is one of my most amazing, most read blogs on my website ever. When you put your house on the market, it's like putting a fresh bunch of flowers in the middle of your garden on a hot summer's day. All the local bees in your garden are going to flock to them bunch of flowers, right? After a week or two, they're dying, they're withering, bees aren't interested in them. That's your house on the market. Your launch period is 2 weeks. 70% of interest comes in the first 2 weeks of marketing. Now, I speak to clients all the time that say, "Thanks, Perry. This guy said it's 550. I know you feel it's more like 5 to 520, but I'm going to give him a try." Now, when that property is stagnant on the market, you can reduce it to 500 if you want in 6 weeks' time, but it's stagnant. So to get that place sold, you've got to put it to 475. So you've missed out on your market value, your proper market value, for trying to get 50 grand because one of the 3-4 agents said, "Oh, I think sign here for 26 weeks and I think I can get you 550. Just be really careful. You're best off pricing low and selling high rather than pricing high and selling low.
Right. Gwyn's got another good question. Picking up on something that you said, curious as to why the buyer needs to build rapport with the agent. Why? What benefit does the buyer get from this?
Agents and sellers want the most easiest, smoothest transaction possible. So it's like when I say to buyers, never make a verbal offer. Tell them you're going to make an offer and you're going to email them your offer. With that offer, attach your proof of deposit. They're going to want to see your mortgage AIP as well, which is fair enough. Your solicitor's details, your broker's details, everything you can possibly attach to that email. Because that to me is an organized, well-organized buyer. They've got all their ducks in a row, and it's versus 4 other offers where buyers are refusing to show me their deposit in their bank account, screen grab of their bank account, block out all this sensitive information. That's fine. We have to tick the box that says we've financially qualified this buyer. So the agent, whether you like it or not, has influence over which offer the seller's going to go with.
Right. Exactly.
That's why you need to build rapport.
I wondered what you're going to say, but I mean, I agree with you. So, if you come along and you're just a real dick to the agent and you're rude to the agent and there are competing buyers, well, your offer's not going to, they're going to think, well, they're going to be a dick throughout the whole process. So let's not take that bias off.
And I'm not saying that your offer would be withheld from the owner or anything like that. It
No.
would just be, look, hey John, here's the 4 offers. This guy's been a right pain to deal with. And
Yeah.
if he's a pain to deal with now, it's going to cause
Yeah.
us a nightmare down the. Okay, Perry, let's skip over that one. What's the other 3 offers looking like?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. How long we go now? We got 50 minutes. That's long. Yeah. Thank you, Duncan. See, that's very good observation. Perry, as I said, I was wondering, he's been straightforward about it being manipulation. Every last one of us wants to make a margin. Giving credit for opening yourself up to these questions in live stream. Absolutely. I think you've been very brave, Perry, because there's a lot of people out there with actually very unfair views about agents. Because something I can tell all of you now, right? Having worked alongside agents, having had Perry as a client, is if you've never done that job, you've got no idea how difficult that job is. Especially when you've got the newspapers against you, building up public resentment towards agents. And I have immense respect for anyone who makes a living as an agent, even the ones that don't do it very well, because it is not an easy way to make a living. And to get to where Perry's got in his career, with a highly respected brand selling £2.5 million properties and stuff, you don't get there without being really good and building a really good reputation. And
I always say to people, when they're talking about agencies, like, let's say we've got, any one time I'm running 15 clients. That's 30 lives running on what I have quite a bit of control over, the timescales potentially, if I want to chase the solicitors loads or sit back and do nothing. So agents that take it seriously really we fly their flag. But it's your job, who's watching these lives, to make sure that you wean out the cowboys from the good ones. And there are lots of ways, which we've covered on this live, on how you can do that as well. Yeah.
Now, there's a question I've seen a few times in there. It's gone now and I can't find it, but I'm going to ask it. There are a lot of... I'll repeat the question. I'm going to give you my take on it, and I'd like to know what your take is. There's a lot of first-time buyers saying, do we buy now or do we wait? Do we buy now or do we wait? And my answer is always this. Especially because the actual buying process, even if you're quite lucky and it goes quite quickly, is still at least 6 months, all told, start to finish. And when you start viewing until you actually move into your new home, it's at least 6 months, really. And because of what we think is happening in the property market, then provided you don't overpay, if you are in a position and you've got the finances to move now, then you should move now. If you want a new home, because owning a home and being settled in a place that you want to live is more important than saving a few quid by waiting a bit of time, right? And as long as you don't overpay and put yourself into an overexposed position, which is something that you must avoid doing, then it doesn't matter that house prices are falling, because being in a home is not a financial thing. It's about being in a home and having the security and the stability of a home where you're going to get on with your life, get on with your career, get on with your relationship, get on with your family. And so, guys, if you're only thinking about, if your question as a first-time buyer is, when should I buy? If you're only thinking financially and you can afford to wait because you're comfortable where you are now, then wait, because prices are definitely at the moment coming down. But if you are looking to buy because you want to be living in a home that you own, and as a first-time buyer, that'll be a new thing for you, don't wait just to save some money. I mean, wait if it means that you're going to have more choice, by all means, right? If you don't like what's currently within your budget right now, then be patient. But what I would say to all of you, whether you're thinking of waiting or not, is be out there viewing. Because if you're the one viewing with agents when that dream home, and you only have one, comes onto the market, you'll be the one that'll be there to take advantage of that property that happens to have a seller that's keen to do a quick deal and therefore does a great price, and you get to move into your new home at a great price, even though the market's still going further down. So, it's not either or, right? It's like, if you want to move, be out there viewing, because that costs you some time, but the return on the investment of that time is that you will get to know your market really, really well. Because when you're out viewing with agents will tell you what's going on, and you won't get that information anywhere else. But if you're out viewing, and you'll see which properties are hanging around the market and not selling, and you'll see which properties are selling, and you'll get to know what's happening at the coalface of the market, which means that the day that your property comes along, and it's the one that you love and the one that the seller's prepared to do a price that is within your budget, you'll be there to go, mine. And unless you're out there looking, you'll miss those opportunities. So Perry, I'd love you to pick apart my advice and say if you disagree or add to it.
So whenever someone says, Perry, should I buy now or should I wait? I always say, what's the cost to you not to buy? So what I mean by that is you could be losing your perfect property that's come up. Your rents are going through the roof. We have quite a big lettings department in our business, and the rents are, I can't believe it myself, to be honest. I think it's astronomical. But again, it's demand driven. The cost of travel, if you're traveling loads of distances and you've got all the cost of that, you've got rent, you've got travel, you've got brain space. You know, if you're really just not enjoying where you're living, you want to get out of the area, loads comes into it. It's not as clear cut, I don't think. And, you know, if you're paying 20 grand a year in rent and the prices drop 10% and you're looking to buy a 200 grand property, you're not really any worse off. And you would have chipped away at your repayment mortgage in that time, potentially. So just take that overall view. There's no right or wrong answer for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And the reason that I say what I say is because if you find a place that you think, oh my God, I never thought I could get a place like this within my budget, and the seller's prepared to do a good deal, you know, then you won't care what's happening to house prices at that point.
And what matters is what you buy at, obviously. And look,
Yeah,
I've got
exactly.
an analogy. It's a 20-year built up through factual. For every 5 houses on the market, 3 have to sell, 2 want to sell. Now it's your.
That's an interesting stat. Is that your own personal view, or is
Yeah,
that's
my own
what
personal
your experience after 20 years tells you that? 3 have to sell, 2
want to sell,
want to sell but don't have to.
and will pull off the market if they don't get the price they want and live happily ever after. 3 of them. Now it's your job as the buyer to find those 3, not those 2, and position yourself in the in the best way possible. That's really important. And it could be job relocation, it could be death, it could be divorce, it could be birth, you know, the drivers that cause people to move house. The other little tip that I've got, I guess for first time buyers, this is quite a good one. It's a minefield, but with the right agent on your side as a buying agent, you'll be fine. Is one of the best ways to buy a property, and I've bought loads of properties for clients like this, is unsold auction lots. So don't worry about the 85% in the room that sell. What you want is the 15% in the room that don't.
Okay.
Really important that, because if they were in an auction, the kind of reserve price is going to be pretty keen anyway. If they're in the auction because they really need to sell, If they didn't sell, now they really, really, really need to sell. And my investment buyer clients, all I do is just sit there sweeping up unsold auction lots they're already probably 10% below market value to be an auction. We're probably getting them for 20% below market value because it's now unsold. And we, so yeah, that's a good little nugget. I won't waffle on though.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great. I've never even thought about that. That's great. So auction properties that don't sell.
And you'll probably think, and they think, well, I can't buy it all because it'll be cash buyers and stuff like that. The auction house can agree a private treaty purchase after auction, as long as it's mortgageable. Now, some houses in auction won't be mortgageable, but many of them will. You can just say, look, I'll exchange in 28 days and I'll complete in 28 days, rather than exchanging today and completing in 28 days. They've got no other options. They're unsold in the auction.
Okay. Now, this is I'm going to show you this comment and then show you another question which relates to the comment as well, right? So Adam on YouTube says, I don't think you ever want an estate agent as a buyer because they don't have your best interests at heart. The more you pay, the more they get paid. And the question that I think that relates to that is, what is a buying agent and how do you find a good one, and does it cost a lot? So do you want to just explain, answer that question?
The previous guy has misunderstood the question. So a buying agent is a buyer acting in the sole best interests of the buyer. An estate agent, they've got a duty of care to the buyer, obviously, but they act in the seller's best interest at all times. So a buying agent is literally that. You pay them. So how it works in my business, for example, we have clients who want us to help. They want us to find them a property. I've just found a client an off-market house that's not even come to market yet, and we charge a fixed fee of £5,000.
Okay. So he's wrong. Adam is wrong. That the more they pay for the property, the more you get. You charge a fixed. Right. Okay. So Adam, that is incorrect. And
When you're negotiating against the selling agent, the estate agent, yes, fine. When you've got a buying agent, or how we do it sometimes is if a client comes to me and says, Perry, we've helped a client recently in Cambridge. He's a doctor, missed out on the last 4 houses, sick to death of missing out on houses, said to me, I don't really care what I've got to pay. Can you help me get the next house that I want to buy? I keep getting outbid. We helped him, and we charge 15% of the saving negotiated off the asking price. So
okay, so that answers this next point. So Craig would, you're confused, right? Because what Perry's saying is actually he charges a percentage of the saving off the asking price. So the more money he saves you, the more money Perry gets paid, right? And what he also said earlier, Perry, is that you cannot act for a buyer on a property that you're also selling.
Yeah.
Right. So you can never be acting on both sides, and I think it's actually illegal. If it's not, you wouldn't do it anyway. So either you're
acting. The trouble is, but you know, I almost think buyers not having an agent should be deemed as illegal, because when you, as a buyer, are dealing with a selling agent, it's no different to a married couple divorcing using the same solicitor. I genuinely believe that. There's a reason why Mr. and Mrs. have a solicitor to negotiate the divorce proceeds, because both need good professional representation. Whereas in this country, one of the only countries in the world, actually, most countries, South Africa, America, have got buying agent, selling agent. We act in the best interest for the buyer, but not really, because we're there to get the seller the highest figure.
Yeah, right. Interesting comment here. JK has pointed out to Monkey Jim that that's not what you said. He said, if you're a nightmare buyer, he'll warn the seller, because as a seller, I don't want to pay on the arse all through the process. Yeah, happy he warned you. Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's silly things, right? Like, honestly, I say silly things, but they're not silly. If buyers are not being very responsive, then it's just writings on the wall that they're not going to be responsive trying to get the sale through. So just be aware of how you're acting with the agents ultimately. If you want the house, be serious. You know, one thing I would advise all buyers on this live not to do is kind of multi-offer. I've had buyers go out on a Saturday, offer on 3 different houses, and they're like, I've offered on 3 houses today. Whichever one takes me offer first I'm going to go with. You know, go. If there's 3 houses you like, have your plan of negotiation for your most preferable one, the one you really would rather have, because surely out of 3 houses there's one that's a bit nearer to the school or a bit nearer to your work. And then if you can't get that after a day or 2 of negotiation, move on to the next. But definitely don't spray and pray with your offers.
So there's a buyer here who I think her name's Joanne. She was polite. She put a cash offer in on Friday, proved the funds, but no update, called on Monday, and they'd sold to someone else. So I think Joanne's probably feeling a bit like miffed about that. She put an offer in and didn't even get a call back. Just got told the book. So what? I mean, you don't know what happened there. Obviously, no one knows. But I mean, it sounds to me like someone else had a higher cash offer, right?
Might not have been a cash offer. It might have been a higher offer, which is getting a mortgage, but it's a 50% mortgage or whatever, which is low risk, low loans of value.
Yeah,
it might have been that the other person that offered agreed to sell the house with the estate agency, that they've got a house to sell. You know, there's which is poor practice, but some agents prefer buyers where they can get 2 sales out of it rather than 1. So I think you've got to be just very careful. Just have someone acting in your best interest, and it's so worth its weight in gold.
Cool. All right, Perry, listen, we've been going for over an hour now, so I think we might wrap it up there. Do you have anything you want to say, anything to add or to ask me or before we go?
No, just, I guess I've been checking some comments come in as well. And thank you to everyone that's like defending me with the comments from this bloody estate agent. But what people need to understand is 20 years as an estate agent, you kind of got a thick skin. You're kind of used to this.
Yes.
But hopefully I've been helpful and given good advice.
Yeah.
And I'm always around if anyone needs any more.
Yeah, well, I've been seeing the comments as well. And I'd like to say to all of my viewers that I'm very, very happy with anyone challenging opinions, challenging statements, challenging ideas or anything that says, but I'm not going to accept personal remarks of any nature, and I'm just going to block people from the channel who make personal remarks, because personal remarks are just irrelevant. Okay, I've actually already blocked a couple of people who just made personal remarks. It's just it's pure. It's just you know, you're not going to get very far in life if you make life decisions based on stuff like that. So yeah, this is my channel. And guys, I'm not going to have personal remarks because they're just pointless. By all means, you can judge and get angry and disagree and get passionate about anything that anybody says. You can disagree passionately. You can disagree angrily with what people say or their stance or that kind of stuff. But personal remarks, absolutely no space for that on this channel. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you everyone for watching. Of course, 282 people just on YouTube watching this. Thank you to everyone watching on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Twitch if you're watching. And I can assure you guys, I have dealt with agents, good, bad, all of them. I've come into contact with agents. They weren't my clients, but they were outright criminals. And I've come into agents that I think should have been given sainthoods as well. And I can assure you that whatever you may think of Perry from this call, he's one of the best agents as far as his commitment to his customers, his passion for service, and his professionalism that I've ever come across. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had him on the channel. So
I think what will help people as well, Charlie, you know, is buyers, everybody, you know, whether we like it or not, the seller is the agent's client.
Yeah,
we can solve that by buyers having their own agent as well.
Well, I also would point out to every first-time buyer watching this, right? When you've bought your home, one day you're going to need to sell it. And when you do, you're going to want someone like Perry working for you. I promise you. You've got to remember that. They've got a very difficult job. Thank you. Mark Graham. He's a fellow agent. He's actually in New Zealand, but I think he's coming back to the UK. Mark, you were supposed to be back here by now, weren't you, Mark? I thought you were coming back to the UK. Probably a good idea not to. But yeah, that's been fantastic. And guys, I'm going to be doing this a couple more times. I'm going to get some different agents on from different parts of the country. Michelle Gallagher from JDG. She won that best estate agent in the country 2 years in a row now.
Really good.
She's fantastic. I don't know her personally, never met her, but I think she's absolutely outstanding. Yeah, we'll have more of this. And I've got a conveyancer lined up. Do you know Rob Hailstone, Perry?
Yeah, I do.
I haven't met him, but I'm talking in conversation with him about having a live Q&A for people to ask conveyancing questions as well.
Lovely.
But this has been brilliant. Time has flown by. An hour and 7 minutes. It's been fantastic. I really appreciate you, Perry. Thank you for your patience with the unkind comments, which are just not welcome on here. I will see you soon, and I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, Charlie. Take care.
Right, I'm just going to let you go, and I'm going to wrap up with the end of the video, and I'll talk to you soon, Perry. All right?
Thanks, mate. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. God, we could go on forever, couldn't we? There's so many good questions. So thank you for your great questions. And I'm sorry to those of you whose questions I couldn't answer. I would like to just remind any of you, because actually there's been increasing numbers of you every day who are looking to talk to a mortgage broker. I've got a couple of great guys. I've got some great feedback on them as well. These are hand-picked mortgage brokers that I trust. They're independent, whole-of-market mortgage brokers, and they know what's happening with rates before anyone else does. And if you are a buyer in this market, if you've already got a mortgage in principle set up and you can lock in rates, because there is a risk based on what the Bank of England said today that rates are going to be going up. Just a risk. I'm not predicting that they are. Everyone seems to think that they are going to go up. It might make sense to get a rate locked in now if you're looking to buy in the next 6 months or so. So do talk to one of the agents. Just pop to that URL on the screen, and your details will go straight through to them. Otherwise, yeah, just checking your last comments. Guys, honestly, you really shouldn't ever judge a book by its cover. Ever. It's a massive life mistake in all areas of life to make a judgment on someone's ethics and someone's professionalism based on what they look like or what they sound like. All right. If you haven't learned that lesson yet in life, you will. It's a lack of humility to think that, because you've got no idea what someone's values are based on their accent. Oh, for fuck's sake, what a stupid assumption to make. Okay. It's like someone made a comment about a Cockney. Well, I mean, some of the kindest people I know, some of the people who work in homelessness, they're Cockneys. What are you saying, that they don't deserve to be trusted? But it's just a stupid thing to think. Come on, guys, don't judge a book by its cover. I've known Perry long enough. Do you really think that I would have him on here if he was someone who I didn't trust? That's a guy whose advice you can trust. He was very honest and transparent. And really, I'm giving you all warning, okay? On the next live stream, any personal remarks whatsoever, you're just going to get blocked. Not having it. Not having it. All right. So otherwise, lots of love and hugs to all of you. All the best. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.